welcome to this very important knowledge session on restart of visa services for travels. As we know that various countries, they have gradually lifted travel restrictions from India under the air bubble arrangements. Both Indian as well as many foreign airlines, they are offering number of flight options for those who want to travel to countries like US, Germany, France, Canada, UK and UAE. However, as we know that this travel is subject to certain conditions which are laid down by Ministry of Home Affairs as well as the governments of the destination countries. And as we know that many air transport bubbles, they have also come up during this as a part of this COVID temporary arrangement, which are aimed at, restarting the commercial passenger services when regular international flights suspended as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. And as we know that this air transport bubble, they are reciprocal in nature as both countries, they enjoy the similar benefit. And India has created air travel arrangements with countries like US, France, Germany, UK, Canada. And for these countries, India has also air transport arrangements for Indian nationals holding visa, which is valid with a validity of at least 1 month. Other than the visa for tourism purpose, they are all allowed to travel. And as we know that UAE, they have in fact allowed tourists to travel into its borders. So that means that visa holders of various categories like student visa, business visa, or work visa, they will be allowed to travel outside from India. And in order to understand more nuances about the nuts and bolts about what all visa services are there for the travelers in offering, and what is the new dimension that we need to be 100% adapt to, so that there is no complexity or no problem in understanding the nuances of applying for visa. PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry along with VFS Global has crafted a very important session in order to make all the delegates know about the nuances of restart of visa services for travelers. So without any further ado, I'll request Mr. Rajan Sehgal, Co-Chairman of Tourism Committee at PhD Chamber of Commerce Industry, to kindly give the welcome remarks and also lay the foundation for this very, very important session. Over to you, Mr. Sehgal.
Yeah, good afternoon once again. It's a great welcome to all the delegates who are attending this very informative and knowledgeable session from VFS, who is our partner in various annual events of PHDCCI of tourism related. So we welcome the team of VFS. As we know, after this lockdown, people are really looking for travel. They are really looking to go to various countries, various destinations within India, outside India. And I think to start with, before the airlines, we have to come to the embassies, the VFS center, which is looking after most of the countries for their visas. So this is the first point if you want to restart your travel. And that's why we are here for this session. And we request VFS professional team under the leadership of Mr. Pranav Sinha to give us the session and to your knowledge, to our delegates at various corporates who are attending this session will circulate this presentation to travelers from their companies, which will be a great benefit to all. And we wish this event a great success. Over to you, Mr. Dr. Jitendra.
Thank you, Mr. Sehgal, for laying the context of this knowledge session. And I'll request Mr. Pranav Sinha to kindly give his presentation and make everyone apprised about the new visa regulations and regime that is there in the offering. Over to you, Mr. Pranav.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Singh, Mr. Sehgal. Thank you so much for this opportunity. A very good afternoon to everybody who's attending this webinar. I'm more than pleased to be here representing VFS. My name is Pranav Sinha. I'm the head of South Asia region for the company. And my colleague here, Raksha, will help us put up the presentation on the chat on the screen right now. And we'll then take you through the entire restart program that VFS has embarked on. And as rightly said by Mr. Sehgal and Dr. Singh, the restart of any travel wherever visas are required starts with applying for that particular visa, whether it's online, whether it's through the embassy or predominantly through VFS Global. So taking you through the entire journey, what we are trying to emphasize on is predominantly what has VFS with the concerned governments restarted, and what are the various hygiene and security safety measures that the organization has taken at the centers with the restart of our operations. Very quickly, to take you through VFS global presence in the world, we work with 64 client governments across the globe. We operate in about 144 countries in the globe, roughly about 3,399 visa application centers. We've processed over 224 million applications since our inception in 2001, which also involves 97 million plus million applications on biometric enrollment. On the next slide, we service 52 governments across 8 countries in the region, which is South Asia. Whereas to be very specific for India, we service interests of 51 governments across 590 application centers in about 19 cities. Our presence is on the map. Very critically to tell you all, and which if most of us here on this call are aware, we only take part in non-judgmental task of the visa application. It's purely administrative. The decision making of any visa application is sole prerogative of the respective government to which the applications are submitted by us. To very quickly show you a glimpse of some of the centers that we operate globally first. These are all centers across the globe. Some pictures of Russia, some pictures of Middle East, UAE, just to show you the safety norms that we follow. We most certainly follow all the WHO guidelines. The use of protective kits is a mandate. Bare minimum, the gloves, masks by any customer coming to our application center is mandatory. Any customer that will walk through the doors will be subject to temperature checks. And if the temperature is below the allowed norms, we will definitely be seeing that customer that day, basis whatever is the process for each government. Moving on to very quickly take you through restart in India, most important for all of us, and possibly the most interesting topic in terms of what have we restarted. So in the order of last started, the most recent restarted operations was France. If you notice through the next 2-3 slides, the slides are divided. The slide is divided into a few columns. First is to say which country has restarted with VFS in India, for which categories are the applications allowed to be accepted. VFS does not decide which categories should be allowed. It is the sole prerogative, the decision of the respective country that is going to process the visa. So their embassy consulates decide and tell us which category can be allowed, not allowed. So if you see the categories, predominantly all long stay categories are the ones which are at the moment allowed to be submitted through for these particular governments. What we have on column third is the cities in which that respective country is allowing those categories. Though we operate in 19 cities, not all 19 cities are operational with the restart. Of course, this is with a lot of consideration in terms of how many categories allowed, what are the numbers of applications that we are going to process, where is it going to be submitted to which consulate or embassy. That's been taken under check. And on the last column is when did we restart that particular government. It's very important to note the comments on the bottom in orange that appointment is mandatory to come and submit an application. For some governments before COVID, walk-ins were allowed, but that's not the case right now. And that predominantly is the only change in the governments where walk-ins were allowed earlier. You have to compulsorily take an appointment to come of one of the VFS offices in these cities and submit your application. So ranging from these governments, if you go to the next slide, is a list of the other set of governments that we've restarted. If you notice, it's in the order of which restarted latest. So from August to July, some very few in June. July was predominantly the month where most of the governments that have restarted came about to start accepting some applications. It's very critical to note, and as Mr. Sehgal, Mr. Dr. Singh also mentioned, it also depends on the air bubble, on the flights that are available that are flying out of India. you are much more aware of these piece of information in the country as of now. International flights are not free and open for all sectors at the moment. There are only air bubbles that are working, a few charter flights operating here and there. Those particular governments are trying to see how to best help that particular category of visa customers. So range of some countries mentioned on this slide. The next slide also shows few of those countries. If you would have read through the column 2 visa categories, it's primarily UK that has started all visa categories. Of course, UAE, Dubai is also accepting all travel category visa applications. But UK and Turkey have restarted with all category visa applications that can be submitted through one of our many offices in the country, many visa application centers in the country. Moving on, if we could move to the next slide. What we've done here for you all, which could possibly help answer some of your very frequently known received questions. I'm sure your customers are contacting you. You all as customers would have much of these as a question for you all. Student visa application categories are open for most countries. Yes, we saw on the list. I think we can even make that list available to you all in terms of which country has started with what category of applications. So student visa are actually much of the applications that most of these governments are accepting. There was an announcement in media very recently by UK in terms of flexibility for students to possibly start their online course journey here in India right now, and thereafter move to UK when travel becomes easier and open in terms of border control and in terms of movement between the two countries. USA has started with few categories only. The most recent was opening up appointments for interview waiver cases for these categories that are on the screen. Canada Visa Application Center remains shut still. We are in constant engagement with the Canadian Embassy and consulates, as well as with their government centrally in Canada. And we wait for their instruction. As soon as they give us the directive, we would be more than happy to open the centers. However, the decision making is with the government. So the Canada centers remain shut still. As I mentioned earlier, mandatory appointments, taking appointment to come visit an application center to submit your application is mandatory. Limiting working hours for some destination city of operation. This is primarily keeping in mind what are we handling in which city, what is the volume that we are taking care of at the moment, and most importantly, the safety and hygiene of everyone included, not only the customers, but also our staff members. We have to be very careful in terms of which shift of staff is working on which days, to be very specific and clear that we have a continued operation. And since these information remains fluid, it is ever evolving, it is ever getting updated. We would highly recommend everyone to visit vfsglobal.com. On COVID-19, the information from more a government, pan-government point of view, there's a COVID-19 advisory section right at the top of the vfsglobal.com page. If you click that, it will give you most recent updates that VFS gets from our client governments. To the next slide. What we are going to do through the next few slides, and we all understand there are a lot of frequently asked questions. We saw a few popping up already in the question answer section. We've tried to address a few FAQs, frequently asked questions already through the next few slides. And that should possibly help some of the questions that were raised here and in other forums to us directly for them to be answered. Now that for the first question, now that lockdown are mostly lifted, does it mean visa application centers will be fully open? It not necessarily. It really depends for the governments that was shown. So the 3 slides on which government, which category, which city, that decides predominantly what is the which centers are open and for how long. Again, best information and most updated would be on vfsglobal.com. So it's best for any customer to possibly check all the information on this website before they start taking an appointment and pursue their visa applications to be submitted. Have passports submitted before lockdown been returned? Yes, most of the governments have done that. for those governments that have restarted and they have returned the passports to VFS that were submitted to them before the pandemic broke and the lockdown was implemented. Most of those have been returned already. We opened centers also during the lockdown as well, in terms of whichever city, whichever municipality, whichever corporation would allow the private offices to open, and we've handed out passports. We continue this pursuance. We are in constant connect with all the governments, and as soon as our passports are handed back to us, we return them to the customers. One area that we recommend very highly, and it's also coming as a suggestion by most of the client governments that we operate for, once you submit your application, please do encourage everybody to take a return passport by courier. The whole intent is to avoid customers or anyone a repeat travel to come back to the visa application center. To the next question. Would we be required to submit medical history when submitting visa application? Not really. We do not particularly ask for any medical history. For that matter, even a COVID-19 report, a test report by any customer that's coming in to apply for their visa application. Of course, if any government would mandate VFS to do so, then we will have to follow that instruction. However, that will be very clearly updated on the website. Hence the encouragement, please do check the vfsglobal.com website before starting to make arrangements for your applications to be submitted. Also, very clearly, we follow the WHO guidelines. We also follow whatever each state, especially talking about India, each state regulations are in terms of health and hygiene. And that's a mandate that we have across all our centers in India. Can I travel if I have a work or residence permit? A straightforward one. If you already have a residence permit or a visa to travel, depending on the flights moving out to that country, allowance by that country to take inbound travel, yes, then you are able to use that visa. For any fresh applications, it would again depend on those particular countries, whether they allow particular categories to be accepted through us or not. Moving ahead. The next question, most frequently asked, what happens to a valid visa if the country in question has not yet opened travel for certain categories? Again, one of the questions that was asked already on the Q&A. We would encourage you all to check the particular government's website as well as vfsglobal.com website. It has the most updated information. There's no straight single one answer for all governments. There are some governments who are reissuing those visas that were issued during this period and were not utilized by customers, reissuing it free of cost. Some are doing it at their own decision-making speed, while the others have not updated this particular information as yet. Hence, it's not a straightforward one answer for all governments for everything that goes under VFS. It's best to check individual websites before you all are applying. Are adequate health and safety precautions implemented at the center? Yes, very much. We follow all the guidelines that the World Health Organization has prescribed. Every state government, local municipality regulations are followed in particularly. The centers are sanitized very regularly. There is, as I mentioned earlier, an access to the center would be only basis temperature check. And if the customer is carrying the specific PPE kits, which is at least the mask on their face. Moving ahead. When services resume, can one avoid visiting a visa application center as a physical distancing precaution? Most frequently asked at this point in time specifically, and I think it's very natural also for a customer to think this way. In most of the cases, yes. If the application is for any of the governments listed at the bottom in orange, which includes most of the Schengen member states, UK, yes, it is possible for one to apply at the convenience of your residence or office. There is a service which is known as Visa at your doorstep. It is also known as on-demand mobile visa, mobile biometrics, to make it simpler. Please contact VFS team or check our website. The service is very clearly positioned on the website. We've got a lot of interest when we started for UK and some of the Schengens since July. A very high number of customers have actually contacted us, and we've gone to their residence and collected their applications. So very high in demand, very popular these days, especially with the social distancing, physical distancing precautions that everybody would want to follow. To avoid stepping out, passport to be delivered to the address of the customer. I mentioned this earlier. We do, yes, it's definitely available, and something that we would definitely would want to suggest all of you and your customers to possibly take a check on. Try and avoid a repeat travel to the center just to collect your application. We tie up with the best courier company in the country at very nominal rates. Passport comes back to your residence after the processing is done. Most secure way of getting back your passport once the visa adjudication process is completed by the embassy or the consulate. We'll take a quick pause here on the presentation, and Raksha would help us show a quick video demonstrating all the measures that VFS has taken on safety, hygiene aspects at our visa application centers and with all our staff members. Raksha, over to you.
You are important to us. And at VFS Global, health and safety is our top priority. When it comes to safety, we understand that it's the little things that matter. We follow the highest, globally certified health and safety standards across all our visa application centres. Before your visit, our dedicated and well-trained employees ensure our premises are always deep cleaned and sanitised. All employees, including our security personnel, are equipped with protective gear, face mask and gloves. As a responsible organisation, all used protective equipment is disposed of by following biohazard material management practices, as per World Health Organization standards. Our centres ensure fresh air circulation and adequate ventilation with air conditioners cleaned frequently. Hand sanitisers are at your disposal at all times at our centres. What's more, all VFS Global employees are formally trained on safety and hygiene measures. Customer awareness is equally important, and we ensure that our customers are informed through various mediums about health and safety practices at VFS Global. Your safety is our priority, and we are ready to welcome you. Before you enter, please remember to wear your mask and other protective equipment as required. You may have to go through a temperature check, followed by a no-contact screening process. While at the centre, please follow physical distancing guidelines. As an ongoing process, our team disinfects all frequently touched surfaces multiple times a day. Equally, utmost care is taken while handling and transferring your documents. As a precaution, we also have an emergency response plan in place, including isolation zones where permitted. While we are ready to welcome you, here are a few best practices that will help us offer you a safe and convenient experience. Before you visit our centre, please check and book an appointment in advance, as required. Do ensure your application form and documents are complete and in order. For enhanced safety precaution, we recommend you opt for a doorstep delivery of your passport using our convenient courier service option. Your support and understanding will help us create a safe and convenient experience. We look forward to welcoming and serving you again.
Thank you, Raksha. If you could have the presentation put up again, please. I hope that was helpful, and it was actually a quick animated snapshot of what VFS Global has done. We try and maintain that standard across the globe. It's not just here in India. And you would have noticed that these are all guidelines by the WHO, and specifically every state government is emphasizing on all of these to be taken care of. The video then reflects some of these images here, very specifically managed. Very important are also to take care of the ventilation and this air circulation in the centers. The sanitization is done very regularly. Customers would be subject to temperature check. Most importantly, all our staff members are trained in terms of what are the do's and don'ts. What are the they have to go through a complete well constructed training program. Do a certification on the same as well, and they are all aware in terms of all the norms to be followed. Moving ahead. While we showed you in the first slide pictures of some of the global offices of VFS, these are some of the offices across India that VFS operates. Temperature checks done, staff using PPE kits, and the marking on the floor, marking on the chairs, signages across, very widely put up, signages on each counter, on all the norms to be followed. Moving on. What we would like to do through the next few slides is just to reiterate the importance of some of the important products or services that VFS offers. The very first is visa at your doorstep. I would sincerely encourage all of you and to inform all your friends, colleagues, family, and customers alike on this very important service. About 22 to 23 governments allow this service. It was in the previous slide. We can forward the information to you all through PhD office. The service is called Visa at your doorstep. You can ask VFS trained staff with a mobile biometric kit to come to your office or residence to collect your applications and your fingerprint at a very nominal cost. I think at the moment, the most important aspect for any individual traveling is their own safety, security, and hygiene. And what could be, even far better than being at your residence and at your comfort and convenience and submitting your application. So this service is available for select governments that have allowed this service through VFS, and it's actually UK and most of the Schengen governments that allow them at the moment. And we will highly encourage this for customers to apply through this medium. That's one. Moving ahead. Courier return of passport. I've spoken on this. Very critical. I think it's most important for all of us. It's critical that we do not make a repeat visit to one office for one purpose. Once you apply for your visa application, you can opt there. While applying online, taking an appointment, if the website allows, I think you can book a courier service there as well. Very convenient, very fast. It's around approximately the same time when a passport is issued, refused, whatever decision is taken by the respective government, and the passport is returned back to us. By the time we bring it back to the respective centers and hand it out across the counter, at around the same time, with this convenience, it could be reaching your residence or offices. So highly encourage customers to opt for this service, courier return of passport. What we also have in offering is the optional travel medical insurance. We have tie-ups with some of the leading firms in India and globally. It's something that is available at the centers, at the entrance of most of our all visa application centers. Please feel free to stop by, ask for the service. It is also available online in most of the websites. Please do take a look. It may become very important in some of the, as you all know, Schengen member states do ask for it as a mandatory document. And it's very important and very critical at such times to have a very well constructed, well thought of travel insurance that could be issued to any customer on demand. One of the services that VFS has just very recently started, it's been almost a month plus, is a pre-departure COVID-19 testing solution. We've termed it as negative is the new positive. What VFS does is we've tied up with accredited ICMR accredited labs and medical facilities across 11 cities in India at the moment. There is an online process that has been generated by VFS. If you go on our website, vfsglobal.com, and you select the particular country that you're applying from India, it would lead you to the particular country's website. Also gives you the option to book an appointment to get your COVID-19 testing done. It's for RT-PCR sample collection, alongside tying up with the registered accredited labs across 11 cities. We also have an in-house center for RT-PCR sample collection only in Mumbai, Mahalakshmi. It's not inside the application center. It's a separate office, but in the vicinity of the same property where Mumbai Mahalakshmi application center is. Test results are not given to us. It's confidentially sent to the customers. Some of the governments are asking for a COVID-19 test result, obviously to be negative before a travel is undertaken. Whilst a visa could be issued and given to a customer, there is a mandate for the customer then to travel with a COVID-19 negative certificate, which should be taken 72 hours, 96 hours, depending on the regulation by the respective government, before their travel. VFS is happy to help all such customers. We've formed this online journey for such customers to book an appointment to go to any of these laboratories in 11 cities, sorry. So that's also available with VFS Global. This is the picture of imagery of the center in Mahalakshmi, Mumbai that VFS operates. Just for you all to know, the safety booth as is allowed for such collection and RT-PCR sample collection being done. The network and the way in which this could be generated or service rendered across the 11 cities across India. One is in VAC, which is at the Visa Application Center. That's only Mumbai as specified. However, at labs and home collection, available in across all cities. Of course, some of the states still mandate doctor's prescription. That would be on the traveler, that would be on the customer to take care of. And then they can contact us to avail any of these services. What we also do in terms of doctor prescription where required, there are certain yeses that can be facilitated by us and our partners as well, as has been described on this slide here. That's all from our side in terms of presentation. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you all, telling you all what VFS has embarked into. We call it the restart of visa application submission journey. Thank you so much for the time to be in front of you all and addressing all of you in terms of VFS global initiatives. Happy to take questions that would be there by either the panelists or the members attending this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pranay, for such a comprehensive presentation. In fact, you have cleared so many doubts the travelers are having. I'm sure that 99% of the problems must have been resolved. In fact, we have received some of the questions on our email also. I'll just put across few of the questions. One of the questions that we have got is that due to COVID-19 impact, is there any change in the visa application process at VFS Global?
No, not really. There's only one change, that in certain governments where they would allow customers to come walk in without an appointment. That's the only change for now, that everybody should, and it's very, very, very highly encourageable and advisable that everyone visiting any of our visa application center that is operating, do take an appointment and see us. Otherwise, in terms of accepting an application, there is no change in the process of accepting it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question is that if I do not wish to visit the visa application center, what are my options? In fact, you have told us some of the options. If there is any other option, please let us know.
Yes, there are a couple of options. One, the visa at your doorstep is predominantly the one which is allowed by about 20 plus governments. You can be at your convenience of your residence and apply for the visa application. It's exactly the same that you would go through when you visit any center. It's far more convenient and comfortable because you're sitting at home, and two of our trained officials in proper PPE kit would be getting to your residence to accept your applications. Another way that we are also exploring with the respective governments, some of the governments have given us certain approvals in maybe select cities or across India, is where a customer is not required to be present physically, or even an agent or a corporate is not required to be present physically, where biometrics are not required to be enrolled. We are asking those governments to allow us set up a network of courier deliveries of such applications to us. A couple of governments have allowed it for certain select categories, especially where and only where fingerprints are not allowed or not enrolled.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Another question, in fact, like for students whose courses have already begun abroad, can they apply for visas later once international flights resume?
Honestly, this is a question for the respective governments. VFS Global does not play any role in deciding this. There was an example illustrated very clearly by UK. It was a media article that they published. They very clearly are emphasizing the fact that you should enroll on your courses, start learning online, going to online classes, and as and when air travel starts and the travel becomes much more safer and conducive for international travel, they could then apply for the relevant visa and then continue their journey of education in the host country. Hence, it is advisable, since we do not hold that particular decision making for sure. It's the decision of the respective government to take. We'll advise everyone to keep a very regular check on the vfsglobal.com website. It gives you the latest updates that we also receive from the governments.
Great, thank you. In fact, we have got many questions in the chat box. I hope most of the queries must have resolved. If there are any questions which is not answered, I request Raksha to kindly take over some of the questions for the ease of everybody. Over to you, Raksha.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Singh. We've got a few questions. I think some have already been answered, but here they are nevertheless. One question is, when are we expecting tourist visa applications to start? And a related question, a couple of questions coming in from others is, for specific governments, for example, Malta are not mentioned in the deck. When do you expect these applications to start?
The response is actually something that I mentioned already. We at VFS Global also would not be privy to that information. It's dependent on the government. It's also bilateral. It's what the European Union would also decide when it comes to any Schengen member state. If each of those governments' decision when they want to open up travel coming out of India in interest to all of us. So at this point in time, whatever slides showed in terms of whichever country accepting what category of applications is what VFS would also be aware of. However, we assure you that we will definitely keep you updated as and when any government starts accepting any category application. That table will be updated, and I think we can very easily forward it to the PhD central office. That can be disseminated to all of y'all.
Another question that has come in, Pranav, is, are agents permitted to submit applications on behalf of travelers?
Once again, very specifically government dependent, where fingerprints are involved. Very obviously, no one can represent a customer. Representation of customers is allowed by most governments, and that would not change with the restart of applications. Wherever representation is allowed by the respective governments, we will continue with that same means of submission of application. So it's very specifically dependent on the government regulations. Wherever fingerprints are to be enrolled, customer will have to walk into the application center.
There is a question from Mr. Bharat from JTB India asking if there is any extra measure or guideline for visa application submission and documentation to be followed by applicants. I assume this means post-COVID.
Fair enough. The guidelines for visa application submission or the documentation that is required for any category for any respective government is all very clearly identified and prescribed on the vfsglobal.com website. It's very difficult to specifically talk about one particular government, and it's definitely not correct to do that as well. I think it's best for any traveler to check the website while they are taking an appointment, or even before the appointment, preparing their application, for you all to guide your application or your customers as well. Please do check the website. If there's any updated information that we receive from any particular government, it straight away goes on their website to be updated. So be rest assured, whatever information is on the website is the most updated.
Then there is a question from Mr. Mark Donnell asking, once fingerprints have been given earlier, till how many years do we not need to give it again? And if the fingerprint is given for one Schengen country, would it then be required to be given while applying for another country?
Interesting one. For UK, very specifically, when you apply and enroll your fingerprints each time you are applying for your visa. For Schengen, there is a provision of that's called 59 months rule. Once your fingerprints are enrolled, you don't need to enroll your fingerprints for the next 59 months as far as it's for the same category. However, there are certain exceptions. There are certain rules and policies governed by respective governments. I think it's again best once you book an appointment, you will get that information online.
We have one question that was for Dubai. I think this is referring to the table that was shown earlier. For Dubai, what do you mean by INVAC? I think one point in the table mentioned INVAC application and online application for Dubai.
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, for Dubai, there is a possibility to do your journey for your Dubai visa online. There is also a service that VFS runs specially for and only for Emirates Airline to do your Dubai visa journey. In fact, there are a lot of editorials going on, social media updates being put up under the banner of DVPC. It's called Dubai Visa Processing Center, which is run exclusively by VFS. There is a great possibility to apply for your Dubai visa through VFS. So the names of the cities that were mentioned is where you could go ahead and submit your applications for Dubai visa through those centers.
A question that is coming up again a couple of times here is, when will Canada Visa Application Center open?
I've specified that in one of the slide. We do not have a fixed date, fixed timeline as yet. It does not really apply to Canada only. It's for any government. When UK started in July, France started in August. It was the government that decided that they allow VFS to open which application center and for which category. So a very straightforward answer is we do not know at this point in time when would Canada open. But an assurance again, as soon as we have some fixed information, any information from the Canadian Embassy on a possible restart in India, we will definitely let everybody know.
Thank you. There's one more question, not in relation to any specific destination, but the question is, can we just walk in physically and apply for a visa?
Any other day, any other year, depending on the allowance by a particular government, I would have said yes. We would love to host you. We would love to see you at our centers. But no, at this point in time, it's in your best interest to make sure that you take an appointment for the specific country that you would be applying for. It's purely to make sure that there is certain number of applications that we would want to see inside a center, inside a controlled area at any given point in time, so that it's safe and healthy for every one of us. So please, encouragement is to take an appointment before you visit a visa application center for any application.
Okay, and just tossing up this one question that was asked a couple of times relating to Dubai again. Is Dubai reissuing visas which were valid till June, but the traveler could not travel due to pandemic? Coming in from Anju Bajaj.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't have a direct answer for that. We will We will need to get back to you on this one. We'll check with the specific team on the Dubai visa on this front and let you know. We could possibly channelize it through your office, through your central office. But as far as I know, there are certain specific governments that are accepting reissuance of these applications, their applications post COVID once they restart.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. A common question was, will they get the information that is shown during the presentation, to which Sulagna has just responded on the chat, mentioning that the information will be shared. Dr. Singh,
Thank
you might
you.
have over to you.
Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Raksha, for putting all these questions very clearly. And in fact, I'm sure that much of the queries must have resolved. I think Mr. Rajan Sahgal has one question. Over to you, Mr.
Yeah, just observing, there were two questions. One is that some people have applied before the lockdown, but their passports are not received. They have not received the passports with visa or without visa. And secondly, those who have applied for a visa, paid the visa fees, but the visa is not processed, will they get their refunds back for the fees?
So, Mr. Sehgal, to take that once the passport is submitted to the respective government's office, whether it's an embassy or a consulate, the decision making is with them.
Okay.
BFS is not really allowed to go and question them on a particular application. However, if there would be any emergency, the governments also realize there are no flights, moving out of India. It's not possible for anyone. Let's say you've applied to a particular government and you need your passport to go to some other country. That situation also doesn't arise at the moment. However, if there's any emergency where a customer has submitted their application pre-pandemic and pre-lockdown, and they haven't received, and there's an emergency for them to get back their passport, feel free to come back to the same application center or write to us, reach out to the call center, and we'll then be able to check with the particular embassy consulate if there is any response that can be given to the customer. On terms to the second question on the refunds as well, it's clearly a prerogative of each government. They are still working on it. Like for example, Turkey, we know we've accepted some number of applications already where the visa fee was not charged when the applications were reassessed, those that were not utilized in this period. And as such, it would really be the decision of that respective government whether the fees have to be refunded, cannot be refunded. It's purely their decision making. Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, and one last thing, I was in touch with our counterparts in Goa, some corporates and so on. So they saying there are lots of demand. People want to travel to UK for business and other purposes. So VFS, I think, planning to open the UK visa center over there, or they are looking for this reply. So I said I'll give you this feedback after this webinar.
VFS never had a visa center in Goa.
Okay.
It's for different other countries and governments. Yes, we used to go there planned for the mobile biometrics, maybe once a year, twice a year. But then clearly, I mean, if there is demand, I think it'll be good for us to know. Maybe you can route it through your office to us.
Okay.
If there is something that we can do together, you take our visa at a doorstep, kits to Goa and address all those applications. That can be planned, that can be worked out. So please feel free, Mr. Sehgal, if you can forward that to us, Raksha, me, anyone, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Mr. Pranav, in fact, there are some important questions also you have got in the email. Like, are services like priority visa and super priority visa for UK available? And will any of your existing services like premium lounge, prime time, do they continue?
Priority, super priority visa is a service provided only by a UK government. It's one of their services. It's not a VFS service. But yes, it's available. But right now, at the moment, it's only in Delhi. It's not available across the country, across the other 10 centers. It's only available in the Delhi application center. Other services like premium lounge, wherever we operate a premium lounge for whichever government and the city being operational, it is open. That's another set of suggestion to customers also. I think the thought process for any individual is to keep their own self hygiene, self security in check. So premium lounge yes, it's definitely open. Prime time and the other such related services, it will then again much depend on the respective government, whoever is offering it at the moment or not. I think best to check on the website before you apply.
Great, thank you. And now last question is like, will you continue to accept group bookings? And if yes, will there be any change in the process?
At the moment, there is group bookings are not being taken purely because there are only select categories that are being allowed to apply. Yes, we are open to, I won't say expand, but to continue this service. The service was available before the lockdown for whichever country it was available for. That would continue. However, we will need to go back to those respective governments, take their consent again, and it would much depend as to when they allow a larger number of categories to start applying.
I think I
Sir,
got one more question.
please unmute.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Pranav. In fact, I think most of the questions have been answered. I am sure that otherwise it's very difficult for people to get first-hand information and directly from the horse's mouth. Otherwise, people scout for websites or they do, incessant telecalling somewhere here, there to the agents. But directly coming from the visa, such great information, I am sure this is highly, highly valuable. And I also request my team also to that we can also circulate the recording of this webinar to all our members also, because there are certain members who are busy in some of their schedules and they have requested that please send us the highlights. And I'm sure the recording, in fact, each and every whatever Mr. Pranav has spoken in terms of answering all the queries, most of the things they have been resolved and we are able to take much, much benefit. So in the last request, Mr. Rajan Cycle to kindly give his parting remarks and what is the way forward. Definitely we want to have more engagement services with VFS in future also, because there are many other sectors also which are untapped. Particularly many of our associate members, they are very, very keen to attend this session, but because of their engagement with some other programs and webinars, they're not able to be a part of this. But definitely maybe in another 3-4 weeks time we will try to have another session with VFS. Now request Mr. Rajan Sahgal to kindly give his final summation remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jitendra Singh. As we know, the visa information, whatever we ask, it's always less. So I just got a quick, one more question. If an elderly couple wants to join their children in America and they have a long-term tourist visa, can they go? Because at the moment, airlines are issuing only one-way tickets, like Vande Bharat, Air India flights. So can you just highlight before I conclude this?
I'll take that if you promise this is the last question. No, joking, don't worry. No. On a lighter note, honestly, I would not be able to comment on that because it's very specific to the US government. We are partners to a principal contractor for the US, and we are not privy to this information, sir. So what we only know, Mr. Sehgal, is the categories that are allowed to apply at the moment. However, it will be best to check with the US respective embassy or consulate or their website. In this area, US website, US government's website will be the best to check. It would be available there. Otherwise, the embassy or consulate could be reached out for this information. There is also a call center number on our website for the US, so that can be reached as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is a very good information. And on behalf of PhD Chamber of Commerce and all our delegates, because our quantity must, it's not as big as when you do a webinar for a travel industry, but the message will go to various corporate houses, which you can't imagine. It goes directly to the travelers who are going, and once the Sulagna will send the recording to all our members who are not able to attend, I think it will be very useful to them. And whatever feedback in case we get from them, our tourism committee team will contact your office, and if you can give us more information on that. And once again, on behalf of our leadership of PHDCCI, Dr. Jitendra Singh, Sulagna Ghosh, who worked very hard. For now, you and your team, Suraksha and other people. We all, we always talk once a day at least with VFS as from the travel industry.
Sure.
So once again, many thanks for this very informative, very knowledgeable session. And we hope we'll continue with more sessions like this. Thank you very much.
Thank
Sure,
you.
Mr.
Dr.
Sehgal, thank you
Jitendra.
so much. Thank you to
Thank-
PHD for
Thank
this
you. Thank you,
opportunity.
Pranay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Raksha. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Sehgal. Thank you, Sulagna, for sparing
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Look forward
much.
again.
Take care.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.